Hello, everyone, and good morning. Right, so we have almost everyone. That's good. Fine. Let's now start with a new topic, SQL queries. Now, first of all, what is the full form and what does the query means? Okay, see, understand. I have described you one thing that if we consider Salesforce, now see, Salesforce, this is our front end. This is our front end. That means whatever you see over here, like if you would go to an object, and you ask for whatever. So basically, this is your front end. So you fill up a form, you enter all those details which are required, you fill, and when you hit the save button, so what actually happens in that case? When you hit the save button, if you enter the details of a record, all right, and then you hit the save button. So that record is going to be get created. Like for example, let's consider that this is a record which we just have created. This is a record which we just have created. By entering all those details, and once we press this save button, so this record is created. And now onto the edit layout, you can see this record, the details of this record. So basically where this record is getting saved. So that I was trying to describe in a way like, if this is my front end, now this front end always have a back end. This front end is backed with a back end, and that back end is your database. So this is your database.com. Database.com. So what is database.com, by the way? So database.com is a Salesforce data repository. That means whatever the data is generated from the Salesforce of a particular organization, that is stored inside database.com. Not just data, all of the files and everything. Because see, when you go to the setup menu, for example, if I would take you to a place called company profile, and if we would see the company information, so there we are going to see that there are two things which requires a memory: use data and use files. You can click any one of them. There are two views. You can click any one of them. So when you see these capacities, like there is for this particular organization, because that's a developer edition, we have 5 MB of for data storage, and we have received 20 MB for file storage. Now, where this memory is coming from? And for example, you have consumed almost 2.8 MB out of that, 56%. So this is referring to a place called database.com. Database.com. So now, to understand what is a database.com is a place where every data of Salesforce is being stored. So that's the database repository of Salesforce. See, if you can see that I have consumed 2.8 MB, then there is a distribution of that as well. Hiring manager is an object which is storing 761 record, and that counts to be 1.5 MB. 1.5 MB. And similarly all those. And do you have any files? So yes, these are some of the files we have. Do you have any big object? We don't have any big object. We haven't used. So everything, everything is being backed up, and it is showing you like how much storage is being generated. Like if we have consumed 2.8 MB, if we have consumed 30 KB, then what is the distribution of that 53%, 10%, and everything? You can see, you can scroll it down, and you can understand this distribution, this statistics. But these figures indicate what? These figure indicates how much memory is available and being consumed from database stuff. So basically, see, in a normal, apart from Salesforce, what usually happens is like if you would create a front end, for example, your front end is built up with some other technologies, maybe like React and Node. These are some popular technologies these days. So your backend, these technologies like React, JS, Angulars, they doesn't have any support to backend. For example, if you have built up your front end using Java, using .NET, now Java belongs to Sun Microsystem. .NET belongs to Microsoft. They don't have, this particular Java and or maybe .NET, they don't have their backup. In the same package they don't have. Although Microsoft have MS SQL, all right, Java doesn't have anything. So what in that case we used to do, before Salesforce, we cannot have everything in a complete package. So we used to purchase certain amount of space. Like if your application demands the database storage as well, then you either would contact like MS SQL, SQL servers, Microsoft servers, or maybe Oracle you are going to contact with them, or there were so many other vendors as well. But that becomes, your whole application becomes a combination of multiple technologies in that case. So sometimes there were issues related to the data sync. When we say sync actually means sending something to database, or rather getting something, retrieving something from the database to the front end. Right? So sometimes, this becomes a little more complicated, or sometimes even the issues would be get. For example, let's consider okay, the backend is Microsoft servers, and there are certain issues with the Microsoft server which is going on. So that's the reason your data is not properly is being managed, and so system performance is getting hampered. So there were so many issues, whenever we built up before Salesforce, what was come into the existence. I'm talking about that time when there was nothing called as Salesforce. So usually a product development goes like, we develop something called as front end, we hire somebody for the back end, and then we also have some intermediate classes, some business logic classes that were being used to, perform this whole synchronization. Sometimes it happens directly as well, like this diagram shows. But then it was ultimately, whenever we try to develop a whole product, this whole product it was not consisting of a single technology, rather it was a combination of multiple technologies involvements. Front end, you might have certain other technologies. Back end, for the database, you might have certain other technologies. For the synchronization purpose, you might have been used some other technology. So it was a whole combination of certain different technologies. There were, and I have described this, but in the previous, when we started learning Salesforce, that time maybe I have described this thing. That time maybe I have described this thing. So basically, what was happening in that time was like, first of all, the product development cost was very high because it involves multiple technologies, and you have to buy the licenses of all of them. For example, in your front end has been developed with some technologies like Angular, JS, Node, or something else. So you might would require the licenses of them. You might would require the licenses of some programming technologies. You might would require to get the licenses of your backend part, your database part. Maybe you'll have to purchase Oracle servers or some others, IBM servers, something like that. So, the whole thing, the product development cost was very high. Softwares were developed at a very high cost that time. That was the first drawback. The second, the duration of this whole process was very long because it have dependencies on everything. Like your backend have a dependencies on the front end. Your business logics have a dependency on both of them, front end as well as backend. You cannot create anything in place in like, we cannot go and create anything in advance. It always have to be like, the first, in the first step, or maybe in first few months, like your front end would be going to create it. And now based on that front end, your backend would be created. The database tables and everything would be, the fields inside tables would be getting created and everything. And then when everything is being ready in the front end and the back end side, we have to make those connectors. So we go and write the business logic classes and everything. So they were like full of dependencies with each other. So because you cannot start a parallel development in this case, this takes a very long time. And if the time is long, the involvement of your the developers and the team would be long. So when your engineers are working for a long duration of time and they are billable, always billable. So they are billable for a very long time. And obviously, the cost is going too high. So again, see the software cost, how that time, the software cost was very high. First, you'll have to buy the licenses of individually all of them. If there are three involvements, if there are like Oracle is involved or maybe something else is involved, you have to buy the licenses of, you have to pay like three separate companies to buy their license. First thing. Second, the overall project development would involve multiple teams into this, like, front end team, back end team, your business logic teams, or maybe some other teams as well. Testings, software testing, and then you would require, for example, they are being involved for a very long duration of time. So this whole thing was there, like, these are some of the drawbacks. So as like when the Salesforce come entirely as a package. That means if you are purchasing a licensed version of Salesforce, Enterprise Edition, Professional Edition, Unlimited Edition, Basic Edition, whatever, it comes like a package. That means it would offer you this front end. It would also offer you the back end. You don't have to have a dependencies on anybody for database. Salesforce data is getting stored inside its own repository called database.com. Then it have a mediator called as force.com. Now this force.com would connect your entire front end with the back ends and the back ends with the front ends. So the back and forth communication is there with the force.com. And it do a vast thing from this as well. I mean, just not force.com is not just about connecting front and the back and back. It can do literally more tasks, right? So Salesforce always comes in a package. That is the reason, guys, it requires significant amount of time to learn these technologies. See, if you wanted to become a front-end developer, then you go and learn technologies like React, Node, Angular, JavaScript. These are relatively small technologies, right? These are relatively small technologies. That could be ended like in 3 or 4 months is sufficient to them. Now, if you wanted to become a programmer, so maybe you're learning something like Python, or again like JavaScript is front-end coding, by the way. Or maybe some other codings. There are so many codes are there. That is again relatively small course. If you wanted to become a database engineer, you probably would learn like Oracle, SQL, MongoDB. That is again a relatively small course. But when you wanted to learn the Salesforce, if you wanted to become a Salesforce developer, then you have to learn everything out of them. That's the reason, like, we have learned this whole configuration part. What are the functional out-of-box functionalities has been given into the Salesforce. We learn like how we can create the applications, this framework and everything. The front end part I'm talking. In the admin part, what we have done, we have learned how to build up the application, and that is going to be presented as your front end, like your applications, how the applications are being created, how to assign the logos and everything. Then how to create the entities. Entities are these objects. How to create the fields inside that object. How to mark up relationships. How to build up certain validation rules. How to assign the formulas. Then how to build up some additional, like some extra part, reports, analytics and all, security, users management. This everything we have learned. Now, these all were related to what? Your front-end entities. Then we go further and we have started learning the programmings. Now we are going to the back-end part, right? So in the back-end part, apart from the programming, apart from developing the business logic, we are also going to learn something called as SQL queries. And this SQL queries would enable you to make a direct interaction with database. See, if I would ask you, I wanted to see all account records. What you are going to do? You would take me to this front end. You go to this account, and maybe you have what to say? You have this. You already have a list for this enhanced list view, and you have this option. You would make a click onto this and then go. So this would, this would fetch these all entities, these all records. They are coming from database.com. There is a table called account. Every object, what you see in the front end, they are table inside backend. They are table in the backend. So if you have an object called account, for sure there is a table called as account inside database.com. If there is an object called as position, candidates. So these objects, we see them as an object in the front end, but they are actually database tables. And these fields, whatever the fields it have, they are columns, and these are records, these are rows. These are rows. Every record is a row. So if you are fetching something, I mean, if I would say you that I wanted to see all of the account records, so you take me to this front end and you have a list view for that. With this, or for example, I will tell you, I just wanted to see not everything. I wanted to see all those accounts record where the industry value is banking and rating is hot. So maybe you would going to develop something like this. And I have told you this, that was my in the initial days, I have told you how to build up certain options, how to filter out the records. I mean, if these all are the records, there are 138 records, but we don't want to see everything. Rather, we are interested in some specific records. So how to apply those conditions? You know this, how to create this list view options and all, right? So for example, you have this and you would going to click, it would going to see out of all 138 records, it would display only those records with this condition, which is matching, like industry is banking and rating is hot. Industry values are banking and ratings are hot. But this everything is coming from where? This is coming from database.com. There's a table of every object in there. And we are doing that. Now see, this was your front end. This was your front end. But if I wanted to fetch these values in my program, and for example, if I would be telling you, write a program to update, let's say, the phone value, to update the phone value of account, specifically those accounts where industry values banking and rating is hot. Now, I wanted that every one of them, every one of them should have the same value. How you are going to fetch these entities inside your program? In the front end, yes, you have something called as enhanced list view. Now, probably you would understand why this section is very important. This fetch out the data from memory, database.com, and input display it over here. But if you wanted to filter out, you can like, you can, why I'm going at it. You can create new view by which you could filter out the records. You have this option. That's the reason this enhanced list view is very important. This list view options, they are very important. But they can be applied only onto the front end. I'm talking about, like, I wanted to fetch the things, the records, but in program, how to do that. So now for that particular portion, we are going to learn SQL, SOQL queries. So queries, in short, is a way in every programming, not every programming, inside a program, this word query, this reflects to a mechanism. This reflects to a certain set of instructions. What is a query, first of all? What is a query? So I'm just trying to define that. Query is a mechanism or maybe a set of instruction that if we give that to a database, it would respond as something. It would give back that data. So if you wanted to fetch something directly from your database, then query is that mechanism. Query is that mechanism. Now, what is SOQL? So SOQL stands for Salesforce Object Query Language. That means this query can be only applicable to Salesforce Object. If you go in Oracle, there is something called SQL. But that S doesn't stand for Salesforce. In Oracle, whenever we fire a query, the query type is SQL, PL/SQL. SQL stands for Structured Query Language. PL is Programmatically Structured Query Language. So if any one of you have learned database a little, though they know what does it means by query. Otherwise, for all those who are new to this, query is a mechanism. Queries are some instructions which are used when we give this instruction to a database server. It would respond something back to us. Now, SOQL particularly stands for, because that is a high. This SOQL is, although it has been extracted from SQL, the conventional SQL itself, the SOQL is being developed from the conventional SQL, and most of the clauses, most of the commands, most of the keywords, what we are going to learn are same as of SQL, structured query language. But there are few further enhancements as well. Okay, so we have like SOQL, Salesforce Object Query Language. Now, this is the syntax. You can learn, you can go and read all these theories, whatever. I directly branch to the syntax. See, every SOQL, every query is always going to be start with select. Select. After select, you have to give the columns name, the field names, the API names. One second. So every SOQL always starts with select. Select. And then you have to mention like what you wanted to see. I'm going to explain everything. So don't worry of this formats and everything. Just try to understand. What are the fields that you wanted to see? And then comes from select fields from, give the object name from where you wanted to see, like from account. And then these are something which are going to be filtered out. We are going to see them. These all are called as clauses. Clauses, and these are operators. So we would going to see, like we're going to cover everything. What is, first of all, a basic query. First of all, a basic query. And then I'm going to cover clauses. Then I'm going to cover the operators and few wildcard characters. I'll be using everything. Don't worry. I'll make you pro into this. All right, I'll make you pro into this. So we would going to understand over. Now, before I would start it, these are some important things, and this you have to learn. See, I have told you like create a listing of all those governor limits which you are running, which you are learning throughout. Create the list of all governor limits, because this is very important, not just from the interview point of view. You should know this, and you should not forget this. If you're working in Salesforce, you should always have to work within the boundaries. These boundaries are called as governor limits. All right. So for example, if I am writing a program, how many SQL queries I could write down that program? The maximum SQL queries is 100. Is 100. The maximum DML statements we have recently completed that. Yeah, I'm giving you the scheme out. You can now unmute yourself. Tell me how many DML statements. Yes?
150.
150 DML statements we could use. What kind of error you get if you would try to use more than 150 DML in a same transaction?
System exception.
Yes, system System, what, Bhagyashri?
System execution, I think.
Yes.
DML
Uh-huh.
So null
System, yes, tell me.
system dot null exception.
No, it's not null exception. Yes, anyone else who try their luck? पढ़ाई
system
करो.
dot limit error 151.
Yes, yes.
System not limit exception.
देखो अभी धीरे धीरे सबकी याददाश्त वापस आ रही है.
System dot limit exception
हम्म.
and
151.
TMS at
ठीक है चलो. इसको याद करिए सभी लोग. System dot limit exception. Too many DML statements 151. ये एरर आता है. ठीक है. So too many DML statements. ये कब? जब आप DML यूज कर रहे हैं और आप यूज कर रहे हैं more than 150. देखिए उसी तरह से अभी मैं आगे चल के आपको दिखाने वाला हूँ कि अगर आपके लिमिट है मैक्सिमम 100 SQL क्वेरीज तक एक प्रोग्राम में, एक ट्रांजैक्शन में. प्रोग्राम क्या है, ट्रांजैक्शन क्या है, वी गोइंग टू टॉक ऑन दिस एज वेल. बैच प्रोग्रामिंग में आएंगे, सो दैट टाइम इट बिकम्स मोर क्लियर how to differentiate between a program and a transaction. For now, because you are now in the very basic stage of programming, आपके लिए एक प्रोग्राम ही ट्रांजैक्शन है. अभी फिलहाल कुछ दिनों तक, जब तक हमारा नॉलेज थोड़ा सा और बढ़ नहीं जाता, तब तक हमारे लिए एक प्रोग्राम इज वन ट्रांजैक्शन. बट हम आगे चल के देखने वाले हैं कि एक प्रोग्राम में वी कुड इवन हैव मल्टीपल ट्रांजैक्शन. इसलिए मैं जब भी इस बारे में कुछ बात करता हूँ तो मैं दोनों चीजें लेता हूँ कि इन अ सिंगल प्रोग्राम, इन अ सिंगल ट्रांजैक्शन. So if you would try to use more than 100 SQL queries, then there is an error code. मैं दिखाने वाला हूँ आपको. System not limit exception, of course it is. But that time it is too many SQL queries, too many DML statements, too many SQL queries. For too many DML statement, the error code is 151. Here it is 10, 101, 101. ठीक है. So we would going to see this. तो आपको ये याद रखना है कि एक प्रोग्राम, एक ट्रांजैक्शन के अंदर आप मैक्सिमम 100 SQL क्वेरीज यूज कर सकते हैं, उससे ज्यादा नहीं. ठीक है. एक क्वेरी अगर आप फायर करते हो, क्वेरीज आर used to fetch the data, to get the data, to retrieve the data from database. If I wanted to receive something from data, if I wanted to fetch something from database, I wanted to get something, retrieve something, then I'm going to use SQL queries. But what is my limit? If I would fire an SQL query, one SQL query could give me how much of record? So that is 50,000 maximum. Your query could fetch 50,000. So what does this mean? Let's say for account, if there are, consider that there are 60,000 records in a, consider that there are 60,000. Then if you would fire a query, one query would return, out of that 60,000, one query would return 50,000 of them, not whole 60,000. There would be still 10,000 record that will not be getting fetched because query can maximum fetch 50,000 records. So what if I wanted to every one of them? What I wanted to fetch 5 lakh records? What if I wanted to fetch 50 lakh records? You're going to learn that as well. Salesforce is very much capable. Your knowledge is going to be enhanced, but gradually. आप चीजें सीखोगे, सारी चीजें सीखोगे. And in my opinion, I have not seen any flaws in this technology. Believe me. Believe me. Because I have worked in a lot of circumstances, but I have not seen what to say, any flaws in this technology. Salesforce is very perfect, very perfect. All right. And why? Because people are doing their research, and after every 3 months, after every, see how rigorous research is going on in the back end of this technology. सोचो ना, आप भी सोचो ना कि अगर मैं आपको एक ऐसा काम दूं कि हर 3 महीने बाद एक रिलीज लानी है यार, and that release should always come up with certain enhancement. आप ऐसा मुंह उठा के नहीं बोल सकते कि ये रिलीज में मेरे पास कुछ भी नहीं है आप लोग को देने के लिए. It must always come up with certain enhancement. हर 3 महीने में एक नया रिलीज, हर साल में 3 नए रिलीज, समर, winter, spring. So if a technology which gets improved after every 3 months, तो आप ये सोचो कि एक टेक्नोलॉजी वो कितनी फ्लॉलेस होगी, उसमें गलतियों की या कमियों की गुंजाइश कितनी कम हो जाती है. आप आज एक मेल लिखिए सेल्सफोर्स की, यार दिस इज समथिंग व्हिच आई डोंट फाउंड इन योर प्रोडक्ट. They would perform their research, and maybe after some release, if that is really important and it's fact that this technology does not have that provision, they will going to provide it. So kaisa ek whole segment, there is a whole segment of people who are continuously working just to find out what is not there right now in the technology, right? और आप देखिए धीरे धीरे हम लोग जीरो कोडिंग की तरफ बढ़ रहे हैं. ठीक है, जीरो कोडिंग की तरफ बढ़ रहे हैं. और आज तो आप ट्रिगर्स पढ़ोगे, बट आने वाले समय पे ट्रिगर्स खत्म हो जाएगा. I'm telling you that. और सेल्सफोर्स फ्लो जो है, लाइटनिंग फ्लो, that is going to become the whole and single tool for doing every automation part. और एक बात बता दूं नए रिलीज के तहत, नाउ आफ्टर दिस रिलीज, अभी जो रिलीज आ गया है, आप इसके बाद में प्रोसेस बिल्डर और वर्कफ्लोज जो है आप नए क्रिएट नहीं कर पाओगे. सो फॉर माय नेक्स्ट बैच, जो भी मैं नया बैच बनाऊंगा, उसमें वर्कफ्लोज और प्रोसेस बिल्डर नहीं पढ़ाऊंगा. सो अब फ्लोज ही सब कुछ करेगा. बट जो एग्जिस्टिंग फ्लो है, या एग्जिस्टिंग वर्कफ्लोज है, या प्रोसेस बिल्डर है, उनको कोई अफेक्ट नहीं होगा. यू कैन क्लोन देम if you wanted to make any changes in the existing flow workflow process builder, तो आप उसको क्लोन करके एडिट कर सकते हो. That means you can still have the facility to edit your automations. But then Salesforce हर बार एक आपको information दे रहा है. If you would try to build up any flows, है ना, तो आपको एक वर्क प्रोसेस बिल्डर, तो आपको एक मैसेज आता है Salesforce की तरफ से कि try to now create things inside your flows, right? अगर आप वर्कफ्लो रूल क्रिएट करने चाहते हो, if you try to create a new, तो ये देखो, ये एक तरह से ये प्रोसेस बिल्डर में भी आता है. तो अभी डेवलपर एडिशन पे कब आएगा आई डोंट नो, बट जो एंटरप्राइज और अनलिमिटेड एडिशंस है उसमें ये चीजें आ चुकी हैं कि ये न्यू का बटन हट चुका है करीब करीब ऑलमोस्ट सारे सर्वर्स में से. हो सकता है धीरे धीरे अभी नहीं हुआ कुछ जगहों पे, बट हाँ मैं देख रहा हूँ, मैं नोट कर रहा हूँ कि कुछ सर्वर्स पे ये न्यू का बटन नहीं है. बट मेरे ख्याल डेवलपर एडिशन पे रहेगा. अभी कब तक रहेगा आई एम नॉट सर्टेनली नो दैट, बट आने वाले समय पे प्रोसेस बिल्डर आप एडिट कर पाओगे उसको, बट आप नया क्रिएट जहां तक नहीं कर पाओगे. एनीवेज चलो क्या, तो सेल्सफोर्स कैसे है ना, धीरे धीरे लो कोड, पहले तो मतलब मिनिमम कोड, लो कोड से आते आते अब नो कोड पे आ जाएगा. तो एक वक्त आएगा जब कोडिंग ऑलमोस्ट खत्म हो चुकी होगी. ठीक है चलो खैर, तो अभी वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट हम 100 से ज्यादा एसक्यूएल क्वेरीज नहीं फैच कर सकते, नहीं फायर कर सकते, और एक क्वेरी आपकी मैक्सिमम 50,000 रिकॉर्ड्स रिटर्न करती है, उससे ज्यादा नहीं. तो अगर उससे ज्यादा रिकॉर्ड्स लेने हैं तो उसका तरीका दूसरा है जो मैं आगे चल के पढ़ूंगा. ठीक है, और कुछ बेस्ट प्रैक्टिसेस हैं, और ये बेस्ट प्रैक्टिसेस डीएमएल के जैसी ही हैं. लाइक आई हैव टोल्ड यू दिस प्रीवियसली दैट इफ वी आर यूजिंग अ डीएमएल स्टेटमेंट, now DMLs must not be always given inside a loop. So if you are using a DML statement like insert, update, delete या कोई भी, you shouldn't give that inside a loop. आपको उसे लूप के अंदर नहीं देना चाहिए, because when you give it inside a loop, this is as many number of the times your loop is going to be iterated, that many number of the times your DML is also going to be get executed. So we are close to hit the governor limit if it is more than 150, right? Now in the same way, if you are using an SQL query, never use it inside a loop. आप उसे लूप के अंदर कभी भी यूज नहीं करना. So क्यों नहीं करना would be the same practice, because it's close to hit the governor limit. ठीक है, तो हम इसको फिर तो हमेशा लूप के बाहर ही रखेंगे, ठीक है। चलो, अब उसके बाद में हाउ टू इन्वोक दिस, ये दिस इज आई एम गोइंग टू टेक प्रैक्टिकली, बट आई वांटेड टू टॉक ऑन वन मोर थिंग, ठीक है। आई वांटेड टू टॉक ऑन वन मोर थिंग, ठीक है। सी, there are two forms of queries. There are two forms of queries. There are two types of queries rather. Static query and dynamic query. We're going to learn both of them. First of all, I'm starting with static queries. So whenever a static query is written, whenever we write a static query, this is always enclosed within square brackets. A static query is always written inside a square bracket. Whereas if you would writing a dynamic query, that is always written inside single quotes, single inverted commas. Okay, so we're going to see this everything and all. So yes, what I was about to tell. So I'm going to cover everything. Don't worry. We are going to start in the next lecture. We are going to start with the static queries, and we are going to discuss the formats and everything. But more importantly, I wanted you to understand one thing. There are so many different ways. There are so many different ways you can write down the query. I'm going to show you all of them. But I wanted every one of you that you should go to your Google Chrome browser and you should add one extension that would make your life very easy, called as Salesforce Inspector. This would make your life very easy. This is what I used to use over here. I'm going to make you aware how to use this extension. This would make your life very easy. Okay. So today I wanted every one of you to Google this Salesforce Inspector, open that, and then add it, because for you it would be add to Chrome or add to ऐसा कुछ तो भी रहेगा, because I already have that. ये मुझे remove दिखा रहा, but for yours, in your case, it would be like add to Chrome button. So once it has been added, it is automatically like activated. And when it is activated, whenever you are using Salesforce, then only it is activated, otherwise not. All right. So I wanted every one of you to download what I was saying. Yes, to extend this. And I guess this already has been done. I mean, if I'm not wrong, when we were using that data import export part, जब हम data loaders में कर रहे थे, I guess that time as well I have told you. Tell me if I'm not wrong. मैंने कहा था इसके पहले शायद कि Salesforce है ना? So if you have
Yes,
already
sir.
done this is a wonderful thing. So ठीक है, अगर ऐसा हो चुका है तो now what we are going to understand कि हम एक चीज तो हम पहले सीख चुके हैं कि how with the help of Salesforce you can even import data inside Salesforce objects. Now we would going to learn how to fire the queries and everything, how to export the things, right? If you would see, there are two things over: data import and export. Import you already have understood. एक्सपोर्ट में अब मैं आपको बताने वाला हूँ कि एक्सपोर्ट मतलब क्या होता है, ठीक है। सो मोर इम्पोर्टेंटली सी देयर आर 2 to 3 ways to fire the query, but using a Salesforce inspector is the most convenient way to form a query, to execute a query, get the result. How comes? I'm going to talk on this in the next session, the advantages. And most of the time we were going to use Salesforce inspector for entire learning of SQL query. All right. Yeah, that's all for today, guys. That's all for today. So by tomorrow, I'm going to start with the static queries, right? Now, one important announcement. I would be on a vacation. I mean, I'm going on vacation tomorrow, but that doesn't mean you're going to have holidays as well. Whenever it is, I mean, your timing would be fixed to 7:30 in the morning. Today I have taken class at that time. Your timing is going to be fixed for this whole week, or maybe for a couple of weeks I would be out of station. I'm taking my laptops with me. I just have 5 days holiday. I have applied for between 8 to 12, but I'm taking my laptop with me. And there's a term for that. I'm going to explain you what is that term. I just have got one thing in my mind. मैं बताता हूँ क्या. So I'm taking my laptop. So if my vacation is extended to next week, I am going to work from that remote place wherever I am. Anyways, But I am not going to suspend your class because that's already done in the last month, right? So try to have a close watch on your WhatsApp group. Whenever it is not, I mean, for example, if I have to leave to a place early in the morning, only in that case, I'm going to say for no class today. Otherwise, you are going to have the classes, all right? Huh. So yeah, I was talking about one term. There's a term called as in English, there's a term called as busman's holiday. Busman's. Busman's holiday. Now, what does this mean, sir? Busman's holiday. See, uh, what is that term? Busman's holiday. What is this term? Can anyone of you please tell me? Can anyone Google this and say me what is this term? In software industry, this is commonly used. If you go for a vacation, and if you are saying to them that I'm carrying my laptop with me, then they would respond, "Oh, it's a busman's holiday." That's very common in industry. Can any one of you take this privilege to describe what is a busman's holiday? I'm giving you one word to increase your vocabulary. Busman's holiday. See, this is a Latin term, I guess. I'm not sure. For example, let's consider there's a man who used to drive a bus. For his whole life, he drove the buses. That means he's a bus driver. And if he go for a vacation on a bus, all right, let's try to understand that there's a person who is a bus driver and he's going on a vacation on a bus. Although he is not driving that bus, but still because he is inside the bus, he will not going to have that thrill, that excitement. Why? Because that he would going to feel like, oh, it's my usual day. I mean, yesterday I was inside bus, and today also I'm inside a bus. So if you carry your workload with you on the vacation, or maybe if you still work on the vacation, that type of vacation is called as busman's holiday. So in IT, it's really very common. We never get completely rid of everything. Last year, it was like when I went to Thailand, that time only I have requested that I'm not going to take laptops with me because that I'm traveling internationally. It's become really hard. I would be going to visit the beaches and everything. I'm not sure because, and that obviously that's an international travel. How could I'm having going to have my internet everywhere in a place? So that was the only time, when I was considering my whole, why I'm talking this on keeping the recording